Here in Warmley, we see what happens when Champion, the innovative industrialist, turns his hand to garden design. He uses factory waste to build with. He recycles water through the garden. He incorporates industrial engineering everywhere. This is the first concrete garden statue ever built. Everything he builds is big and bold. The history of Goldney is quite well known, but William Champion and his grotto here in Warmley are much more of a mystery, but help us at hand. We've got someone to help us unravel the mystery. Alan Bryant and Sally Watson have both gone to a lot of trouble trying to piece together what there is of the story of Champion. Sally, what kind of a man was he?
Well, it's quite difficult to say in a way, because even though he was really quite famous in his own day as an industrial genius, but he seems to have kept himself to himself, although he was a fancy larger-than-life character. If you judge him by what he produced, I always imagine him a bit like the statue of Neptune's great striding figure. Unlike dear old Goldney, he was more a sort of Graham Norton character, very giggly and jolly little man. He was a Bristolian, and legend has it that when he was young, he dressed as a pauper and went around Europe to discover the secrets of zinc and brass making. And then he came back to England and created this, which is the first industrial complex ever in the world.
And here we are at the centre of the Champion industrial complex. There, a surprisingly modest, stately home, considering the guy was effectively a multi-billionaire of his time. Over there, the little entrance to his grotto. Down here, a boathouse. He'd have kept a boat in there in which he would sail on his 13-acre man-made lake. It's now a mobile home park, still overlooked by the statue of Neptune, though. Over there, he'd have kept herds and herds of horses, used to transport vast quantities of coal from the Kingswood coal fields. And all of that was paid for by this giant industry he had here. And it was truly vast, because there were 15 brass furnaces, 22 copper furnaces and 5 zinc furnaces, all on an absolutely huge scale. But here's the interesting bit. It wasn't just the industry, because there were also workers' houses, churches, schools, shops, everything on one site. And that he did about 100 years before anybody else.
Everybody's heard of Abraham Darby, but Champion's in exactly the same league, if not higher, because Abraham Darby was the iron master. Iron's easy, brass is complicated, and Champion had worked out all the secrets of this non-ferrous metal. He had a whole string, a list of firsts. There was some industrial housing built on the Warmley site. Once again, it was the oldest industrial housing ever built in the country.
Unlike Goldney Grotto, which has been carefully preserved and survives almost as Thomas left it, Warmley fell into disrepair soon after Champion's time. Thankfully, just over 20 years ago, Alan and a team of dedicated enthusiasts began reclaiming it from the undergrowth and reconstructing its remarkable history.
When we came in, it was rubble everywhere. There were trees that brought the roof down in 2 places. It was a mess. And through about 18 months of hard work by the archaeologists and the diggers, and a longer period of research after that, we beginning to get the pieces of this big jigsaw. We haven't got them all. Yeah, we've got some of the border and some of the bits inside of the jigsaw that uncovers the story of the Warmley Grottos.
I want to look through here and see what this is, because this waterfall is beautiful, isn't it, if it is a waterfall, and this wonderful little pool here. What was this like when you got to it, Alan?
15 years ago, this was awful. It was very dark. The rubbish that had been thrown into this area from the top was 5 foot up the wall. As you can see at the top, there's a grill which lets the light in now, which is absolutely perfect because it's a natural opening and naturally light would come down. When we came, that was covered in bedsteads, corrugated iron and concrete, and it was awful. You couldn't see anything. You could only just make out the opening where the water would have cascaded in.
How did you know it was a waterfall?
We didn't. And until this was discovered, this pool was discovered, when all the rubbish was taken away, then you could start looking at the structure itself. We then could see that there was an opening at the top, and I climbed up and looked in and climbed into that opening, and there's a chamber, and that held the water for the cascade. There was water culverts.
Alan and the team discovered that Champion was an early recycler. The water from an artificial lake used to feed his industrial works was then channeled into these waterfalls and garden pools before returning to the lake to start its journey again.
And one of the other things that we think Champion had to create, that the mystery that grottos tried to create, was smoke.
Other ducting the team found suggested Champion sent smoke through parts of the grotto to heighten its mysterious atmosphere. And it certainly works, even today. But Champion's life is as much shrouded in mystery as his grotto.
He overreached himself and he went bankrupt. Legends linger about his later years. A legend says that he was found as a mason in Liverpool. He'd just gone to be a mason. And the people who'd taken over his brass works had, made their pile out of his inventions, felt guilty, and they went up there and offered him a pension. But
This is very different. Look, it's huge, great big vaulted ceiling. And what is this, Alan? It looks like a swimming pool. This part of the grotto appears to have been built over old industrial tanks.
This is typical of Champion, really. His work and his life just intermingled. He was such a workaholic. It would be typical of him to think, oh, here's a nice industrial tank. I'll quickly turn this into an extension to my grotto. It's like the statue of Neptune built of the clicker waste. And the lake, yes, it was a pretty lake to look at, but it also fed the mills. He was just, everything just knitted together for him, really, as long as it was to do with his work. If it didn't have anything to do with his work, I don't think he was probably interested in his...
It seemed to have a double function. It was using up waste material, creating something unusual, and expanding his dreams, if you